The room was silent except for the soft hum of alien technology. Daniel Carter stood at the center of a massive chamber, surrounded by towering beings from across the galaxy. Their forms were strange. Some had glowing eyes, others shimmering scales, and a few floated above the ground without legs. But they all shared one thing: an air of authority that made Daniel feel small despite his confident stance. He took a deep breath and looked up at the council members seated on their elevated platforms. "We've made our decision," Daniel began, his voice steady but firm. "Earth will no longer follow your rules or bow to your demands." The words hung in the air like a challenge, daring anyone to respond. Behind him, Emily Lawson shifted nervously. She clutched her tablet tightly, her knuckles white, as she listened to every word. As a scientist assigned to assist Daniel, she knew how risky this moment was. It wasn't just about pride, it was survival. For decades, Earth had been part of the Galactic Council, a governing body meant to maintain peace and cooperation among civilizations. At first, humanity saw it as an honor. They gained access to advanced technology, medicines, and knowledge far beyond what they could have achieved alone. But over time, the costs became unbearable. The Council demanded more than Earth could give. Precious metals mined from its soil, rare plants harvested from its forests, and even volunteers sent into dangerous missions elsewhere in the galaxy. And yet, when Earth asked for help during crises like famines or natural disasters, the Council always found excuses to delay or deny support. Daniel continued, his tone unwavering. "You treat us like a resource, not a partner. We're done being exploited." His words echoed through the chamber, drawing murmurs from the council members. Some leaned forward, their faces unreadable. Others exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable to human eyes. Emily glanced around nervously, wondering if Daniel had gone too far. Would they retaliate? Or worse, would they simply cut Earth off completely? One of the council leaders finally spoke, its voice resonating like rolling thunder. "You misunderstand your place, human. Your species is young, fragile. Without our guidance, you will falter." The creature's glowing eyes narrowed, studying Daniel as though trying to intimidate him. But Daniel didn't flinch. Instead, he straightened his back and stared right back. "Maybe we are young," Daniel replied, "but we're learning fast, and we won't let fear dictate our future anymore." His statement drew gasps from several council members. To defy them openly was unheard of, especially from a civilization as relatively new to the galactic stage as Earth. Emily felt a chill run down her spine. She admired Daniel's courage, but she also feared the consequences. What would happen once they returned home? Would the Council punish Earth for this act of rebellion? As the meeting ended, Daniel turned to leave, his steps heavy with both relief and dread. Outside the chamber, Emily caught up to him. "Do you think we did the right thing?" she asked quietly. Her voice trembled slightly, betraying her anxiety. Daniel stopped walking and looked at her. For a moment, he didn't answer. Then he sighed and said, "I don't know." But staying silent wasn't an option either. Back on Earth, news of the declaration spread quickly. People gathered around televisions and radios, listening to reports of Daniel's speech. In cities and towns, reactions varied wildly. Some cheered, waving flags and chanting slogans of independence. Others huddled together, whispering fears of what might come next. Laura Bennett, a journalist covering the story, walked through crowded streets, capturing interviews for her report. One man grinned widely and said, "Finally, we're standing up for ourselves." Nearby, a woman cried softly, holding her child close. "What if they attack us?" she whispered to no one in particular. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., President Aaron Hayes convened an urgent meeting with his advisors. The situation was dire, and everyone knew it. If the Council decided to punish Earth, humanity would face unimaginable challenges. Benjamin Cole, head of Earth's defense systems, outlined grim possibilities: blockades, invasions, or worse. Yet amidst the tension, there was also determination. Humanity had taken a stand, and now they would have to face whatever came next together. The streets of New York City buzzed with energy, though it wasn't the usual kind. People gathered in parks, squares, and outside newsstands, their faces glued to screens broadcasting updates from space. Laura Bennett pushed her way through the crowd, microphone in hand, searching for voices to capture. She stopped near a group of men arguing loudly about Earth's decision to leave the Galactic Council. One man pumped his fist in the air, shouting, "It's time we stood on our own 2 feet." Another shook his head, muttering, "They'll crush us like bugs." Laura approached them, holding out her recorder. "Excuse me," she said, her voice calm but firm. "Can I get your thoughts on what's happening?" The man who had cheered grinned at her. "About time we told those aliens where to go. We don't need them." His friend, however, looked less convinced. "Yeah, but what if they come back angry? What then?" Laura nodded, jotting down notes. These were the kinds of reactions she wanted: raw, unfiltered, real. Back in Washington, D.C., President Aaron Hayes sat in the Oval Office, his brow furrowed as he listened to his advisors. Benjamin Cole, a tall man with sharp features, stood at the front of the room, pointing to a map projected onto the wall. "Sir, we have reports of unusual activity in orbit," he said. "Satellites are malfunctioning, and communication signals are weakening. It's possible the Council is already retaliating." The room fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. If the Council decided to act, Earth would be defenseless. Aaron leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. "What about Daniel Carter's plan?" he asked finally. "Is it feasible?" Emily Lawson, who had joined the meeting via video call, spoke up. "We're working on it, Mr. President. But even if we manage to build ships capable of leaving the galaxy, not everyone can go. There simply isn't enough time or resources." Her voice wavered slightly, betraying the weight of her words. Aaron sighed deeply. He hated making decisions like this, but there was no other choice. As days passed, panic began to spread. Grocery stores emptied as people stockpiled food and supplies. Gas stations ran dry, and long lines formed outside banks and government offices. Laura documented it all, her camera rolling as she walked through neighborhoods filled with tension. In one scene, she captured a family loading boxes into their car. A little girl tugged at her mother's sleeve, asking, "Are we going somewhere fun?" Her mother forced a smile and hugged her tightly. "Yes, sweetheart, somewhere safe." But not everyone was preparing to leave. In rural areas, some people refused to believe the warnings. Farmers continued tending to their crops, fishermen cast their nets into rivers, and shopkeepers kept their doors open. Laura interviewed an elderly woman sitting on her porch, knitting calmly despite the chaos around her. "I've lived through wars and storms," the woman said. "If my time's up, so be it. This is my home." Meanwhile, engineers and scientists worked tirelessly to construct massive ships capable of interdimensional travel. Factories operated day and night, their machines humming nonstop. Daniel Carter visited one such facility, watching as workers assembled parts for the vessels. He felt a mix of pride and guilt. Pride because humanity was proving its resilience, and guilt because he knew many wouldn't make it aboard. As he walked among the crew, he overheard snippets of conversation. "Did you hear? They're prioritizing families with kids," one worker whispered. Another shook his head. "Makes sense, I guess, but it still stings." Emily joined him later, her face pale with exhaustion. "We're running out of time," she said softly. "The Council's veil, it's almost complete." Daniel nodded grimly. "Then we'd better hurry." Together, they climbed a scaffold to get a better view of the shipyard. Below them, metal giants took shape, each one representing humanity's last hope. For a moment, Daniel allowed himself to imagine a future beyond Earth, a new beginning among the stars. But the thought was fleeting. Right now, survival was all that mattered. The days turned into weeks, and the strange occurrences grew more frequent. Stars that once shone brightly in the night sky began to dim, as if someone had pulled a curtain across the heavens. Satellites stopped responding entirely, plunging parts of the world into confusion. Planes struggled to navigate without GPS, and phone calls often disconnected mid-sentence. People looked up at the darkening skies with a mix of fear and awe, unsure what was happening but certain it wasn't natural. Emily Lawson worked late into the night in her lab, surrounded by monitors displaying streams of data. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep, but she couldn't stop now. Something big was coming, and she needed answers. Finally, after hours of analysis, she found it, a pattern hidden within the chaos. The Galactic Council had activated something called the Cosmic Veil, a fail-safe designed to isolate civilizations that broke away from their control. It wasn't just cutting Earth off from the rest of the galaxy. It was sealing humanity inside its own bubble, trapping them here forever, or so it seemed. She rushed to Daniel Carter's office, clutching her tablet tightly. "Daniel, you need to see this," she said breathlessly. He looked up from his desk, his face pale with stress. Emily placed the tablet on the table and pointed to the graphs and charts. "It's already started. The veil is closing in. If we don't act fast, we'll be trapped here when it fully seals." Daniel stared at the screen, his jaw tightening. "How long do we have?" he asked quietly. Emily hesitated before answering. "Maybe a month, maybe less." Word of the cosmic veil spread quickly, sparking panic around the globe. Governments scrambled to finalize plans for evacuation, but tensions ran high. In cities like Tokyo and London, protests erupted as people demanded answers. "Why aren't they telling us everything?" shouted a man holding a sign that read, "Save us all, nearby." Families camped outside shipyards, hoping to secure spots on the vessels being built. Soldiers tried to keep order, but their efforts only went so far. Laura Bennett was there, capturing it all. She filmed a mother cradling her baby, tears streaming down her face. "Please," the woman begged anyone who would listen. "Take my child. Just save him." Laura lowered her camera for a moment, overwhelmed by the raw emotion. This wasn't just news anymore. It was human suffering on a scale she'd never seen before. Meanwhile, aboard the partially completed ships, engineers worked around the clock. Captain Rand Mitchell oversaw operations on one such vessel, pacing the metal floors as workers bolted panels into place. His crew moved with urgency, knowing time was against them. "We need those engines online by tomorrow," he barked at a technician. "If we fall behind schedule, we're dead in the water." The technician nodded, wiping sweat from his brow. Everyone felt the pressure, but no one complained. They knew what was at stake. Back on Earth, Benjamin Cole faced an impossible task. Supplies were dwindling, and riots broke out in major cities. Storefronts were smashed, and looters filled the streets. He stood in the middle of Times Square, shouting orders to his team over the noise. "Secure the perimeter. Don't let anyone near the construction sites." Behind him, armored vehicles rolled past, their headlights cutting through the chaos. Benjamin clenched his fists, feeling the weight of his responsibility. He had promised to protect these people, but how could he when there weren't enough resources to go around? As the veil drew closer, strange phenomena became harder to ignore. Lights flickered in homes, and some reported hearing low, humming sounds in the air. Scientists speculated that the barrier was warping space itself, bending reality in ways humans couldn't comprehend. Emily stayed glued to her monitors, tracking every change. She knew the veil wasn't just physical, it was rewriting the rules of existence. And once it closed completely, there would be no way back. One evening, Daniel found Emily slumped over her desk, exhausted. "You can't keep going like this," he said gently. She looked up, her eyes bloodshot. "What choice do I have? If I stop, we might miss something important." Daniel sighed and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You've done enough. We'll figure it out together." For a moment, they sat in silence, staring at the glowing screens. Outside, the stars continued to fade, one by one. until only darkness remained. The evacuation process was chaos. Ships were ready, but not nearly enough to carry everyone. People crowded around the launch sites, desperate to board. Soldiers formed barriers, trying to hold back the masses as officials checked lists of names. Families clung to each other, some crying, others shouting in anger. Laura Bennett stood nearby, her camera rolling as she captured the heartbreak. A young boy tugged at a soldier's arm, pleading, "Please let my dad come with us." The soldier looked away, unable to meet the child's eyes. Inside one of the ships, Captain Ryan Mitchell watched the scene unfold from a viewport. His hands gripped the railing tightly, his knuckles white. He hated seeing people left behind, but he knew there was no other way. "We're doing the best we can," he muttered under his breath, though it felt like a hollow reassurance. Nearby, Benjamin Cole paced the deck, his face tense. He had been tasked with maintaining order, but even he could see the cracks forming. Supplies were running low, and tempers flared among the crew. Daniel Carter and Emily Lawson sat together in a small meeting room aboard the ship, poring over documents. "We can't take everyone," Daniel said finally, breaking the silence. His voice was heavy with guilt. Emily nodded, her hands trembling as she flipped through pages of data. "I know," she whispered, "but how do we decide? Who gets to live, and who stays behind?" They stared at each other, the weight of the question hanging between them. After hours of debate, they came up with a plan. Priority would go to families with children, skilled workers needed for survival, and those in good health. It wasn't fair, but it was all they could do. When they announced the decision, the reaction was explosive. Some accepted it reluctantly, while others refused to leave their loved ones. Laura interviewed a man who had given up his spot for his wife and daughter. "They need this chance more than I do," he said, forcing a smile. But his eyes told a different story. Tensions reached a boiling point when a group of protesters stormed a loading dock. Benjamin and his team rushed to contain the situation, but the crowd was too large. Shouts echoed through the air as people tried to force their way onto the ship. "You can't just leave us here," one woman screamed, her voice cracking. Benjamin raised his hands, trying to calm them. "We're doing everything we can," he shouted back, but his words were drowned out by the noise. Amidst the chaos, Laura continued filming, her hands steady despite the turmoil around her. She focused on a mother clutching her newborn baby, tears streaming down her face as she begged soldiers to let her board. "Please," she sobbed. "I'll do anything. Just save my child." Laura lowered her camera for a moment, her chest tight with emotion. This wasn't just a story. It was humanity's darkest hour. As the days passed, the cosmic veil grew closer. Stars disappeared one by one until the night sky was almost completely black. The hum in the air grew louder, making it hard to think. Emily spent every waking moment in the lab, searching for any way to delay or stop the veil. But the numbers didn't lie. Time was running out. One evening, Daniel found her staring out a window, watching the empty sky. "Do you think we made the right choice?" she asked softly. Her voice was barely audible over the hum. Daniel hesitated before answering. "I don't know," he admitted, but staying silent wasn't an option either. Emily nodded slowly, her gaze still fixed on the horizon. Behind them, the first wave of ships prepared for launch, their engines roaring to life. Humanity's last hope was about to leave Earth behind, and no one knew what lay ahead. The first wave of ships launched into the darkened sky, their engines blazing like tiny suns against the endless void. Captain Ryan Mitchell stood on the bridge of the Stellar Dawn *, his eyes fixed on the viewport as Earth grew smaller and smaller behind them. The hum of the cosmic veil was faint now, but it still lingered in the air, a constant reminder of what they were leaving behind. Laura Bennett sat nearby, her camera resting on her lap. She had filmed every moment of the launch, the cheers, the tears, the final goodbyes. But now she felt numb, unable to process everything she had witnessed. As the fleet moved farther from Earth, strange things began to happen. The ship's instruments flickered unpredictably, and navigation systems struggled to make sense of the distorted space around them. Emily Lawson worked tirelessly in the lab, trying to understand the veil's effects. "It's not just blocking us," she explained to Daniel during one of their late-night meetings. "It's changing the fabric of reality itself. We're lucky the ships are holding together at all." Daniel nodded grimly, his mind racing. They had escaped the veil, for now, but no one knew how long they would stay safe. Days turned into weeks aboard the Stellar Dawn. Passengers adapted to life in space, though it wasn't easy. Food rations were strict, water was recycled endlessly, and tempers flared in cramped quarters. Benjamin Cole patrolled the corridors, keeping an eye out for trouble. He stopped by the mess hall one evening and found a group of passengers arguing over who got the last serving of protein paste. "Enough," he barked, stepping between them. "We're all in this together, so act like it." His words silenced the room, but the tension remained. Despite the challenges, there were moments of hope. Children played in the common areas, their laughter echoing through the halls. Laura captured these scenes on camera, determined to show that humanity hadn't lost its spirit. She interviewed a young girl named Lily, who clutched a stuffed animal tightly. "Do you think we'll find a new home?" Lily asked innocently. Laura smiled softly. "I hope so," she replied. "And if we do, I'll make sure everyone knows your story." One day, the crew spotted something unusual, a faint glimmer in the distance. At first, they thought it might be a malfunction in the ship's sensors, but as they drew closer, the object became clearer. It was a planet, its surface covered in lush green forests and shimmering blue oceans. Ryan called an emergency meeting with Daniel, Emily, and Benjamin to discuss the discovery. "It's habitable," Emily said excitedly after analyzing data from the ship's scanners. "There's oxygen, water, and signs of plant life. This could be our chance." The news spread quickly among the passengers, sparking cautious optimism. For the first time in months, people allowed themselves to dream of a future beyond survival. Laura filmed interviews with families planning their new lives. One man grinned as he held up a small bag of seeds. "I'm going to plant these as soon as we land," he declared. "A fresh start for all of us." Ryan led a scouting team to explore the planet's surface. As their shuttle descended, they marveled at the vibrant landscape below. When they landed, they stepped out cautiously, their boots sinking slightly into soft soil. Birds, or creatures resembling birds, flitted through the trees, and streams bubbled gently nearby. Ryan knelt down and scooped up a handful of dirt, letting it fall through his fingers. "This place, it feels alive," he murmured. Back on the Stellar Dawn preparations began for colonization. Engineers designed plans for shelters, while scientists tested samples of the planet's air and water. Emily worked alongside them, her excitement growing. "If this works," she told Daniel, "we might actually have a future here." But Daniel remained cautious. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves," he warned. "We don't know what else is out there." As the sun set over the planet, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Ryan stood outside the shuttle, gazing at the horizon. Despite everything they had been through, he felt a flicker of hope. Humanity had survived the veil, found a new world, and taken its first steps toward rebuilding. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Months passed on the planet they had named Haven. The first wave of settlers worked tirelessly to build a new life, but it wasn't easy. Supplies brought from Earth were running low, and every day brought new challenges. The air was breathable, and the water was clean, but the soil proved difficult to farm. Crops struggled to grow, and some plants withered despite careful tending. Emily Lawson spent hours testing different methods, mixing soil samples with nutrients in hopes of finding a solution. "We can't give up," she told herself as she scribbled notes late into the night. "If we don't figure this out, we'll starve." Tensions rose among the settlers as resources dwindled. Arguments broke out over food rations, and some began hoarding what little they had. Benjamin Cole tried to keep order, but even he felt the strain. One evening, he found two men shouting at each other outside the storage tents. "That's my share," one yelled, pointing angrily at a bag of dried fruit. Benjamin stepped between them, his voice firm. "We're all in this together. Fight each other, and we'll lose everything." The men glared at each other, but eventually backed down. Benjamin sighed, rubbing his temples. Keeping peace was harder than he had imagined. Laura Bennett continued documenting life on Haven, capturing both the struggles and small victories. She filmed a group of children playing near a stream, their laughter echoing through the trees. Later, she interviewed a farmer who had managed to grow a patch of wheat. "It's not much," the man admitted, holding up a handful of grains. "But it's something." Laura smiled, knowing these moments mattered. They reminded everyone that hope still existed, even in the hardest times. Despite the difficulties, progress was made. Shelters were built using materials scavenged from the ships and local resources. Engineers constructed wind turbines and solar panels to generate power, while scientists studied Haven's wildlife to learn more about its ecosystem. Daniel Carter often joined the research teams, helping catalog plants and animals. He found himself drawn to a particular species of bird-like creatures that nested near the settlement. Their songs were soothing, a reminder of Earth's beauty. "Maybe we're not so alone here," he mused one evening, watching the birds glide across the sky. One day, Emily made a breakthrough. After weeks of trial and error, she discovered that adding a specific type of moss to the soil helped crops thrive. The news spread quickly, and soon fields of green dotted the landscape. Celebrations erupted as people gathered to share meals made from fresh produce. For the first time in months, there was a sense of relief. "We're going to make it," Laura said during an interview with a young mother. The woman nodded, tears in her eyes. "Yes, I think we are." But not everyone shared the optimism. Some settlers whispered about the dangers they might face. Strange noises echoed through the forest at night, and shadowy figures were spotted moving among the trees. Ryan Mitchell led patrols to investigate, but they never found anything concrete. Still, the unease lingered. "Stay close to the settlement," Ryan warned during a meeting. "We don't know what's out there yet." As the weeks turned into months, life on Haven began to stabilize. Schools were set up for the children, and workshops taught skills like farming and construction. Laura filmed a group of teenagers learning how to repair equipment, their faces lit with determination. "This is our home now," one boy said proudly. "We have to take care of it." At night, Daniel often sat outside his shelter, staring at the stars, or rather, the lack of them. The cosmic veil blocked their view of the galaxy, leaving only darkness above. It was a lonely sight, but Daniel refused to let it bring him down. "We've come too far to give up now," he thought. Beside him, Emily adjusted her tablet, reviewing data on Haven's atmosphere. "There's still so much to learn," she said softly. "But maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it means we have a future here." For the first time since leaving Earth, Daniel allowed himself to feel a flicker of peace. They had survived unimaginable odds, found a new world, and taken their first steps toward rebuilding. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. Years passed, and Haven transformed from a fragile settlement into a thriving community. Homes made of stone and wood replaced the temporary shelters, and fields of crops stretched as far as the eye could see. The settlers had adapted to their new world, learning its rhythms and secrets. Children played in the streets, their laughter echoing through the air, while adults worked together to build a future they once thought impossible. Life wasn't perfect, but it was enough. Laura Bennett finally completed her documentary, titled *Echoes of Earth*. It was a collection of everything she had filmed since leaving Earth: the chaos of the evacuation, the despair of losing loved ones, the hope of finding Haven, and the resilience of humanity. She held a small screening in the town square, projecting the footage onto a large sheet tied between two poles. People gathered around, sitting on logs or blankets, watching silently as images of their past flickered before them. When it ended, there was a long moment of silence. Then someone began to clap, and soon the entire crowd joined in. Laura felt tears welling up in her eyes. Her work wasn't just a record, it was a reminder of how far they had come. Daniel Carter stood at the edge of the crowd, his arms crossed as he watched the reaction. He felt a mix of pride and sadness. Pride because humanity had survived against all odds, and sadness because so much had been left behind. Emily Lawson walked up beside him, holding a notebook filled with sketches of Haven's plants and animals. "Do you think we'll ever go back?" she asked softly, glancing at the darkened sky. Daniel shook his head. "I don't know. Maybe someday. But for now, this is our home." Emily nodded, her gaze drifting to the horizon. "It's beautiful here," she said after a pause. "Different, but beautiful." Ryan Mitchell spent most of his time exploring Haven's wilderness. He led teams deep into the forests, mapping the land and studying its creatures. Over time, they discovered that the strange noises and shadows were caused by harmless nocturnal animals. "We're not alone here," Ryan told the settlers during a meeting. "But we're safe." His words brought comfort to those who still feared the unknown. Slowly, people began venturing farther from the settlement, building smaller communities near rivers and hills. Benjamin Cole focused on maintaining order, though his role had changed. With fewer conflicts to resolve, he helped train younger settlers in survival skills. He often took groups hunting or fishing, teaching them how to live off the land. One evening, as they sat around a campfire roasting fish, a boy asked, "Do you miss Earth?" Benjamin stared into the flames for a moment before answering. "Sometimes, but I'm glad we're here. This place, it feels right." Despite the progress, questions lingered. Emily continued her research, determined to understand more about Haven and whether it was truly separate from the rest of the universe. She spent hours studying the cosmic veil, analyzing its effects on space and time. "If we can find a way to pierce it," she told Daniel one night, "we might reconnect with the galaxy someday." Daniel smiled faintly. "That's a big if." Emily shrugged. "Maybe. But isn't that what got us this far? Believing in possibilities." As the sun set over Haven, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Ryan climbed a hill overlooking the settlement. He stood there for a long time, gazing at the stars, or rather, the emptiness where the stars should have been. Despite the veil blocking their view of the universe, he felt a quiet reassurance. Humanity had faced its darkest hour and emerged stronger. They had built a new life on an alien world, proving that even in the face of unimaginable loss, hope could endure. Below him, lights twinkled in the distance as families gathered for dinner, sharing stories and laughter. Somewhere, a child sang a song learned from parents who had grown up on Earth. For Ryan, it was proof that humanity's spirit hadn't been broken. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, on this new world they called home. Years turned into decades, and Haven flourished. The once small settlement had grown into a network of towns connected by winding roads and rivers. Fields of golden wheat swayed in the breeze, and orchards heavy with fruit dotted the landscape. Wind turbines spun lazily on hilltops, powering homes and workshops. Children ran barefoot through the streets, their laughter carrying through the air. Haven was no longer just a refuge, it was a home. Laura Bennett's documentary, *Echoes of Earth*, became a cherished part of life on Haven. It was shown every year during the Founders' Festival, a celebration of the day the settlers first landed. Families gathered in the town square, watching the footage and listening to stories from those who had lived through it all. Laura herself grew older, her hair streaked with gray, but her eyes still sparkled with determination. "We must never forget where we came from," she often said. "But we also can't forget how far we've come." Daniel Carter spent his later years teaching history to the younger generations. Sitting under the shade of a tree, he would tell them about Earth, the blue planet they had left behind. He spoke of its towering cities, vast oceans, and endless skies. "It was beautiful," he would say, his voice soft with nostalgia. But it wasn't perfect. We made mistakes, just like we do here. The difference is we learned from them. His students listened intently, imagining a world they would never see but felt connected to through his words. Emily Lawson never stopped working. Even as her hands grew frail, she continued her research, studying the cosmic veil and searching for ways to pierce it. Her lab became a place of wonder for the younger settlers, who marveled at her experiments and theories. One day, she told them, we might find a way back. Or maybe we'll discover something even better, a way to reconnect without losing what we've built here. Though she didn't live to see her dream realized, her work inspired others to carry the torch. Ryan Mitchell remained a symbol of exploration and courage. He led expeditions deep into Haven's wilderness, mapping uncharted territories and uncovering hidden wonders. One day, while hiking through a dense forest, he stumbled upon a clearing filled with glowing flowers. Their light pulsed gently, like a heartbeat. Ryan knelt down, brushing his fingers against the petals. "This place, it's alive," he whispered. When he returned to the settlement, he shared the discovery with the others, sparking a new wave of curiosity about their world. Benjamin Cole passed on his knowledge to the next generation, training young leaders to guide Haven into the future. He often sat on the porch of his home, watching the sun set over the horizon. "We did good," he would say to anyone who joined him. "Not perfect, but good." His calm presence brought comfort to those around him, a reminder that strength came not from power, but from unity. As time went on, Haven became more than just a colony. It became a testament to humanity's resilience. The settlers had faced unimaginable challenges, leaving behind everything they knew to carve out a new life among the stars. They had lost much, but they had also gained something precious: a second chance. On a quiet evening, long after Daniel, Emily, Laura, and Benjamin had passed, a young girl named Clara stood on the same hill where Ryan had once gazed at the sky. She looked up at the dark expanse above, wondering about the universe beyond the veil. Her grandfather had told her stories of Earth and the council that had tried to control them. "Do you think we'll ever go back?" she asked her mother, who stood beside her. Her mother smiled softly. "Maybe. But for now, this is our home, and it's enough." The wind rustled through the trees, carrying with it the echoes of laughter, songs, and dreams. Humanity had survived, adapted, and thrived. Whatever lay ahead, whether it was piercing the veil or building a future among the stars, they would face it together. For Haven wasn't just a planet. It was proof that even in the darkest times, hope could light the way.